All right, Scarlett, you just asked me about my experiences as a parent of a child on the waiver. So yes, Hazel was 3, and like I said, she's very involved. She has a lot of medical needs. She's very complex, and once we got on the waiver, we were. It took a little while to get services started, but the first thing that really helped me was that we started getting respite and personal care services for Hazel, and before that, insurance didn't cover that. I was on my own paying out of pocket if I could. And so that was a huge thing for us, is getting respite, personal care services. She actually now has skilled private duty nursing because she's so medically complex. We had to switch to that. But that was life-saving, like legitimately life-saving for me. And then we also have access now to Medicaid as her secondary insurance. So our primary insurance covers some things, but not everything. So Medicaid covers the skilled nursing, first of all. And then a lot of our, like our therapies, they time out after 60 sessions total. Well, Hazel goes to therapy 3 to 5 days a week. So Medicaid covers, once my insurance stops at 60 visits, Medicaid starts kicking in for those therapies. And then they also cover things like her oxygen and respiratory equipment. We've been getting incontinence supplies now covered. And I'm sure there's more I'm not thinking of, but those were the biggest impact for our family. So that, to me, that answers the question, why should someone get on this? But could you speak to someone maybe who doesn't have as many medical needs as me? Why should a parent go through the hassle of filling out this application just to sit on a wait list for an indefinite amount of time?
Well, I mean, the services themselves, like you just said, you mentioned Medicaid. In my experience, the Medicaid, when it's a family whose child is under the age of 21, Medicaid is a game changer because there are no premiums. There are no co-pays. There's nothing out of pocket. They have been sued so many times that they can't limit the number of visits. They pay for ABA, they pay for speech, OT, PT. The Medicaid is the big part. And like you mentioned, Hazel has had personal care and skilled nursing. What people don't know is that is actually a Medicaid covered service because she's still young. She's under 21. But because Medicaid is determined for a child, it would only be if you guys were basically below the poverty level. And then you could get Social Security and she would get Medicaid. So Social Security is determined on family income when a child's under age 18. So most parents who both parents work, or even one parent works, that is just completely out of reach for them. So waiver is the only way for a parent to get Medicaid for their child. And then the waiver services, you mentioned respite, which for anyone who doesn't know, that's basically child care. That's what waiver would mostly pay for Hazel, and a private case manager. So I'm sure that's been a resource to you, even when your case manager, which a waiver case manager is called a waiver support coordinator. They're very familiar with all of the different supports and services and programs. So they're kind of a resource, not just for your waiver services, but for all the other odds and ends that you deal with all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize, but that's the one way for families who have young children to be able to get Medicaid is receiving waiver services. So the other reason I think it's so important to get on the wait list, actually there are a few, but the other one is your situation can change overnight. And you may be in a very stable situation with your child and not feel that you need those services and help. And then something can happen and overnight you're in crisis. That's when being on that waiting list and then applying for crisis services, applying for services because you're in crisis. I mean, that saves at least 60 days because you're not filling out the application and then waiting. The other big reason now is that because the wait list is so long, it is getting more and more difficult. They're actually in a legislative session right now, and they are changing or trying to change some of the categories and really limiting who can even be placed on the waiting list and be deemed eligible. So those are changing, and it's getting harder and harder to even get on the waiting list. So for all the years I've been doing this, I've been urging parents, just take the time and do it. And now I have parents reaching out who are like, oh my gosh, I should have done this 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's not too late. Do it now.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. All right. I'm going to pause.